Hey guys, YouTube Burnett here. Alright, and now here I am with the other review of the last Bash at the Beach show that I have yet to talk about. Alright, and now here I am, and yeah, and this is going to be a review for Bash at the Beach 1999. So, yeah, so yeah, like I was talking about in my last review for Bash at the Beach 1998, I was talking about how Bash at the Beach, like they had it had like a very inconsistent history. Like there were some shows that were good and some shows that were bad. Like 94, 96, and 97 were all like really good to great shows, while the other ones that I've talked about, like uh like 1995, 1998, and 2000 were all like pretty bad ones. So yeah, so it has a very inconsistent history. Yeah, and now this is the very last one that I've yet to talk about. Yeah, so yeah, so Bash at the Beach 1999. How was this show? Well, it was WCW in 1999. So yeah, so that should really tell you like how this show really was. Like oh boy, WCW really just was like getting so bad right here. Like, yeah, I've been saying how WCW in like 2000 really just like were turning to like complete utter shit. Like 1999 and 2000 were just disasters of years for WCW, and yeah, and this show really is just another example of that. Like, just oh boy, this show just oh man, this show was terrible. I mean, yeah, there's no other way to put it. Just, yeah, this is just absolutely terrible. Like, this show was awful. I mean, really, just watching this show, like, it's just like a huge bore, and it really is just an example of like how bad WCW really was getting at this point. Just, yeah, I mean, WCW in 1999 in general, like all their pay per views that year really were just like utter crap, as well as like in 2000. Yeah, and this show really was just no exception. I mean, yeah, I would actually say that I think this is probably the worst Bash at the Beach show. Yeah, I even think this is even worse than like the other bad ones I've talked about, because yeah, the other ones I've talked about, I've said like how 1995, 1998, and 2000, they were all like really awful shows. And if you see my reviews for them, like I gave them like a pretty low scores. Yeah, and this one is even worse than those. So yeah, so that should tell you something right there. Just oh man, yeah. I mean, this show just yeah, it was awful. I mean, yeah, I mean, just you really just had like a lot of like really just terrible matches on the show. Like, yeah, you started like you really just like had like boring match after boring match, awful match after awful match on the show. Like, the middle portion is like part of the show where it does kind of like it's not really like where it like actually gets good, but the middle portion of the show it does kind of pick up sort of, but yeah, just yeah, you still have to really sit through like a lot of really like very yeah, terrible stuff on the show, and even like when that uh like after that middle portion, like it really just goes back into shit. So yeah, so that should really just show you like how really awful this pay per view really was. Just this pay per view was just absolutely horrible. Like I was just pretty bored throughout the show, and I just was like really watching it, just really like really just like wondering like how bad this could really get. So yeah, so this show just yeah, it just absolutely sucked, and yeah, it really is just an example of like how bad WCW really did get. Like yeah, when you and it really is not really hard to see like why like the WWF really was just like totally point. So yeah, so yeah, I just don't know what else I can really say. But yeah, this show really was just really, really, really awful. Yeah, that's really just the best way I can put it. So yeah, yeah. So I just really don't know what else to really say about it. So yeah, I'll just start going through the matches. I'm probably just gonna really just glance right through the matches because honestly, there's not really a whole lot to say about them. Because yeah, a lot of the matches really were just like really awful on the show. So yeah, all right. So the show kicked off like it was Ernest the Cat Miller versus Disco Inferno, and yeah, this sucked. I mean, this match was just so freaking boring. Like it was just some very slow and boring in-ring action between the two of them. It lasted on for like 8 minutes. I really don't remember anything that happened in this match. It was just like so boring and forgettable. And yeah, and it just ended with like Ernest the Cat Miller ended up nailing Disco Inferno with one of his dancing shoes, and yeah, and it knocked Disco Inferno out, and that allowed Ernest the Cat Miller to get the win. So yeah, so Ernest the Cat Miller won in a very boring opener. So yeah, the match just was very bad and boring, and yeah, it just was totally forgettable. So yeah, so I give that match like 1 star. Then yeah, and then the next up, then we had the WCW television title on the line. It was Rick Steiner defending against Van Hammer. And yeah, this sucked too. This match only lasted like 3 minutes. Like it was basically just Rick Steiner beating up Van Hammer, and then Van Hammer like tried to come back, but then Rick Steiner gained the upper hand, and then yeah, then he then just was able to defeat Van Hammer and retain the title. So yeah, so just why did they only give this match 3 minutes? So yeah, it really was just like a very awful match, and just yeah, it really was just like it just seemed useless to even have this match with it just being 3 minutes long. So yeah, so that match I would give like half a star. Then next up, then we had the United States Championship on the line. It was David Flair defending against Dean Malenko. And yeah, this really wasn't even really much of a match. I mean, once again, it only lasted like 3 minutes, but yeah, it really wasn't much of a match. All it really was just like David Flair had like a whole bunch of people in his corner. He had, of course, Ric Flair out there. He had Tori Wilson, Arn Anderson, Charles Robinson, and Asia. Is that how it's said? Yeah. And yeah, and all it basically was just like they were all getting involved in the match, and then yeah, then like eventually the referee ended up getting taken out, and then Charles Robinson took over. Then yeah, then you just had like a Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, and everyone else like getting involved, and then they helped David Flair defeat Dean Malenko. So yeah, so David Flair got the win. So yeah, so like I said, it really wasn't much of a match. It really was just like more of an angle than anything else. So yeah, so due to that, I really don't think it really does make sense to really give this a rating. So yeah, so I'm not really going to rate this. So yeah, okay, and then yeah, then next up, this is where the show does kind of pick up a little bit. Up next, then we had a 8-man tag elimination match. It was the West Texas Rednecks, which consisted of Curt Hennig, Bobby Duncam Jr., and Barry and Kendall Windham, versus the No Limit Soldiers, which consisted of Konnan, Rey Mysterio, Swoll, and BA. Yeah. So yeah. So this was really just kind of like a Survivor Series style match where it's a 8-man elimination tag match. Yeah. And yeah, this was actually okay, but and even saying that really is kind of like giving it some praise because this was actually the second best match of the show. Yeah. So yeah, so this was like during the time where Curt Hennig like did have like that whole like a gimmick where he was kind of like a country music supporter and against rap, and they even like had that song like rap is crap. So yeah, so I don't really know like how to feel about that gimmick, but yeah, this is like when he was using it. Yeah, and this was actually okay. Like I said, uh, it wasn't there wasn't really anything too memorable about it, but yeah, it was like decent in ring work here. Like it did like go back and forth, and like you had some eliminations here. Like first one to get eliminated in the match was Bobby Duncam Jr. or yeah, then eventually then Brad Armstrong, yeah, BA, that was his name, Brad Armstrong. Yeah, he ended up getting eliminated by Curt Hennig after a perfect plex. Yeah. Then eventually Curt Hennig then kind of like found himself by himself after like both Konnan and Barry Windham ended up getting counted out at the same time, though it was kind of didn't really make sense why, because it was like Barry Windham was carried off and Konnan just followed as he was carried off. So why did that happen? Yeah. And then Curt Hennig was by himself with Rey Mysterio and Swoll, and then eventually Rey Mysterio and Swoll were able to get the win after Rey Mysterio did a swan dive off of Swoll's shoulder. So they were able to pin Curt Hennig. So Rey Mysterio and Swoll were the survivors for this match. The No Limit Soldiers ended up winning. So this was, like I said, this was actually an okay match right here. It was much better than the stuff that we had already seen on the show prior. But yeah, even then it wasn't even actually really good. It was just okay, and even that is giving praise compared to a lot of other stuff. And yeah, like I said, this was the second best match on the show. So that match I would probably give 2.5 stars. Then next up, then after this, then we had something that was very infamous among WCW fans. Up next, then we had the Junkyard Hardcore Invitational. This actually took place inside of an actual junkyard, and it was just a bunch of guys really just fighting with each other, and how it worked was basically the first one to really escape the junkyard would be declared the winner. So you just really had a bunch of guys in this match. You had guys like Jerry Flynn, Johnny Grudge, just Sandman, Horace Hogan, Fit Finley, Brian Knobs, Hugh Morris, La Parka, Steven Regal, and some other guys in there. Yeah. So a lot of people really just hate this thing. They are ranting against it, saying how stupid it was, and yeah, it really was not good. It was really hard to really even see what was going on. It was just really not filmed very well, and yeah, and you really couldn't even see what was going on. You had everybody fighting all over the place, and you couldn't even focus on what was going on because everyone was just fighting. In a whole bunch of different people, so you couldn't even really see what was going on. So this really was not executed well at all. It probably did really sound like good on paper, but yeah, the payoff really just, yeah, it wasn't good. Yeah, you just had the guys fighting all over the place, and yeah, but like I said, you really couldn't even pay attention to what was going on because everyone was just all over the place. Yeah, and plus this just went on too long. This went on for almost 15 minutes. So it really just dragged on, and it really wasn't even entertaining to see. It was pretty boring to sit through and see, especially as it just went on. I can only imagine how bored the actual crowd for the show must have been actually watching this, because obviously this wasn't actually in the arena, this was in a junkyard. So I can only imagine how bored the live crowd must have been and watching this. And this just just went on on and on. Yeah, but yeah, then eventually Fit Finley, or Finley for people who know him from WWE. Yeah, he was eventually able to escape the junkyard, and so yeah, he ended up winning this junkyard invitational. So he got the win. So I'm not really gonna rate this because yeah, like the David Flair versus Dean Malenko match, it really doesn't make sense to really rate this to me, because I mean this was really more of a segment than it was an actual match. So I'm not really gonna rate this. I mean, there are a lot of people that do give this a dud, but even that really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It really doesn't make. I just really don't see any sense in actually giving this any sort of rating at all. So I'm not gonna rate it, but yeah, it wasn't good. It was just executed very badly. All right. And then next up, then we got something that was actually a shining star on the show. Up next, then we had the WCW Tag Team Championship on the line. It was the Jersey Trade. Is that how it was said, or Jersey Triad? Yeah, which consisted of DDP, Kanyon, and Bam Bam Bigelow defending against Perry Saturn and Chris Benoit. Yeah, and this was kind of like the fabulous Freebird, a rule where all three guys, DDP, Kenyon, and Bam Bigelow, competed in the match to defend the title. So yeah, so this was actually a 3-on-2 handicap match. Yeah, and this was actually really good. Yeah, like I said, this was the shining star of the show. Like, if it wasn't for this match, like this probably really could have been in contention for like the worst WCW pay per view ever. Yeah, but yeah, thanks to this match, it stops it from actually having that distinction. Yeah, this was a like really good match right here. All five guys really did like very well in this match. Like, it really did go back and forth, and all five guys really did look really good. They really did get in a lot of offense, and it went back and forth. There were like times where you would have thought it would have ended, and it didn't. Yeah, and it did like go on for a while. Like, it lasted for like 23 minutes. So yeah, so they really this was like really good. Like, I really did enjoy this. Like, there were like some high spots in the match, and yeah, there was like some counters in the match, and yeah, like I said, there were a lot of like times where you really would have thought it would have ended, but it didn't. And yeah, and it really was just like a really good entertaining match. Yeah, and then yeah, then when it looked like Saturn and Benoit may have actually won, then um I think it was Kanyon, and ended up throwing some sort of a powder into Saturn's eyes, and then eventually uh, DDP and Bateman Bigelow gave, I forgot if it was Saturn or Benoit, they gave him like a double diamond cutter, and then that allowed DDP to pin the guy, and then yeah, the Jersey Triad ended up winning, and they retained the tag team titles. So yeah, so this really was like a really good to great match right here, and definitely the best match of the show. Like I said, if it wasn't for this match, this pay per view would have been in contention for the worst pay per view of all time. But yeah, but at least that it has this match to save it from being that. So yeah, so this was a really good to great match. I would give that probably 3 3/4. Yeah. So if you actually do have to watch something from the show, then this is what I would definitely recommend watching. This is really like the only match that is actually worth watching on the show. Yeah. So yeah, really good to great match right there. And then next up, oh man. Up next, then we had Roddy Piper versus Buff Bagwell in a boxing match. And yeah, and for this match, you had Mills Lane as the special referee for the match. And yes, this was just absolutely horrible. I mean, didn't Roddy Piper learn his lesson with boxing matches after the horrible one he had at WrestleMania 2 with Mr. T? I mean, wouldn't you have thought that Roddy Piper would have learned from that he is not meant for boxing? But yet he has another one here. And yeah, and just like WrestleMania 2, this one was just awful. This sucked. Like, a stage boxing match just is not good. Like, you can so tell like how fake it really is, and even like the action looked really sloppy. I mean, you had like Roddy Piper like slugging and swinging his fist like a little girl in this match. So yeah, so it just was like very sloppy stage boxing here, and yeah, and it went on for like a few rounds, but at least like it was kept shorter than the Mr. T one. Like, this one only went on for like 3 rounds, as opposed to the WrestleMania 2 boxing match where it went on for like 4 rounds. So at least they kept it shorter here. Yeah, but just like the WrestleMania 2 boxing match, and even like the kickboxing match that Ernest Miller and Mike Sanders had at Halloween Havoc 2000, it once again did not have an actual like legitimate finish. You, you just had like a Roddy Piper like trying to go after a Buff Bagwell, and then Judy Bagwell, who was in Buff Bagwell's corner, then went after Roddy Piper. Then Buff Bagwell then just ended up like a fighting with Roddy Piper. Then he gave him like a neck breaker, which that he should have been disqualified for. I mean, this is a boxing match, not a wrestling match, yeah. And a very stupid finish where this is supposed to be a boxing match, right? So you're supposed to like knock out your opponent to win, right? But Buff Bagwell ended up covering Roddy Piper, and yeah, Mills Lane counted Piper down for the 3. So yeah, so Buff Bagwell pinned Roddy Piper in a boxing match. Just oh my gosh, this is freaking boxing. This is not wrestling. Like you can't count out somebody in a boxing match. That's like they did in the kickboxing match at Halloween Havoc 2000. Yeah, and you can't pin somebody. This is a freaking boxing match. Seriously, if you're gonna do something, freaking do it right. And it seems like every time there's a boxing match in pro wrestling, they always screw it up somehow. Or they just don't do it right. At WrestleMania 2, like it didn't end decisively. Like it just ended with a disqualification with Piper scoop slamming Mr. T. Here, it ends in a pinfall, and this is a boxing match. Halloween Havoc 2000 kickboxing match. It ended with Ernest and Cat Miller getting counted out when, first off, that match was supposed to be over because it was after the last round, and it was kickboxing, so, I mean, there are no countouts in that, yeah. And if you just, go through the history of, boxing matches in, WWE and WCW and any other promotion that may have had it, just, they all don't even actually end decisively. They always just abruptly stop or just they have some stupid finish. So yeah, so just they really need to stop doing these boxing matches, and I think they will now because there hasn't been a boxing match in pro wrestling in quite some time. So I think they're done with them now. But just yeah, when they did do them, they just could never do it right, and they always just did them very stupidly. So yeah, so this was just stupid and awful, and just this just pissed me off. So yeah, so this match gets a dud. I mean, it was just so freaking stupid, especially the end. So yeah, all right, and then we get the main event, which was the WCW World Championship on the line in a tag team match. It was Kevin Nash, who was the champion, teaming up with Sting versus Sid Vicious and Macho Man Randy Savage. And how was this for the title? Well, it's supposed to be a tag team match, right? But the rule that they gave this match for the title is that they made it so that Kevin Nash could lose the championship to whoever pins him, and yeah, and they even include Sting in that. So they say if either Savage, Sid, or Sting pin Kevin Nash, he'd lose the title to them. So that it didn't even make sense. If it's a tag team match and he's teaming with Sting, how is Sting gonna pin him? So yeah, so it just is stupid to do it have it be done like this. I mean, at least when in other times that they've had the title online in a tag match, such as at King of the Ring 2000, where it was a Triple H, Vince, and Shane, like against Rock, Undertaker, and Kane. With in that match, they had to be where if Rock, Undertaker, and Kane won, whoever got the pin would become the champion. Yeah, and even in WCW, when David Arquette won the title, in that match it was just be whoever got the pin would become the WCW champion. The rule wasn't like if the champion got pinned by anybody, they would lose the title to that person. Yeah, but yeah, this was that's how the stipulation worked in this match, and it was just stupid. Yeah, and yeah, yeah, and plus also just yeah, this match, yeah, this really was just an awful match. Once again, this match was just boring. As I was watching this, I was just bored for this entire match, and plus, yeah, it didn't even seem like the title was even a factor in this match. They just treated this match as a normal tag match. I mean, they didn't even really try to take advantage of the whole thing with Nash getting pinned by any other one of the guys. So yeah, so just it just really didn't even make the title seem like a factor. I mean, my question is, why didn't they just make this a four-way match? It's why wasn't this a four-way match? Why did they have it be a tag match? So it was just stupid. Sting didn't even have any sort of conflict with Kevin Nash in the match. Like they didn't even like do anything with Sting actually trying to pin Nash and take the title away. So yeah, so it just so they just handled the stipulation very awfully for this match. Yeah, and like I said, this match was just boring. Like it was really more just like Savage and Sid fighting with Sting for most of the match. Like Kevin Nash hardly had any involvement in the match. So yeah, so this is just something else that made it seem like the title wasn't even a factor for this match because yeah, I mean the stipulation like didn't say that like whoever got the pin would become champion. Like it was just like whoever pinned Nash would win the title. So yeah, so they just really he didn't even do a good job of really executing this whole stipulation. Yeah, and like I said, this was just boring. Like it was just most of it was just a Sting fighting with Sid and Savage, and then Nash then like eventually did get tagged in. Yeah, and then fought with like a Savage and Sid. Yeah, and then then eventually like a Sting like then got in the ring and then was Stinger splashing everybody, but eventually like a Sid chokeslam Sting taking him out. Yeah, then as a Savage was fighting with Kevin Nash, like you had a Gorgeous George who seemed to be aligning with Kevin Nash at ringside, yeah. But then, like as Kevin Nash was like setting up for a jackknife, Gorgeous George got in the ring and then uh, turned on Kevin Nash and like nailed him, yeah. And then yeah then that allowed Savage to then nail Kevin Nash with the flying elbow drop. And then Randy Savage was able to pin Kevin Nash. So Randy Savage ended up winning the WCW World Title. So yeah, so just like a swerve from Gorgeous George with her like setting Kevin Nash up and showing that she was like in cahoots with Savage this whole time. So yeah, so Randy Savage ended up winning the WCW World Title, but just a night later he ended up losing it to Hulk Hogan. So yeah, so why did they even bother giving Savage the title here? I mean, this is just like another example of like how badly the WCW title was being treated at this time. Like in 1999 and 2000, the WCW title was changing hands just way too much. Like you couldn't even keep track of who was the champion. Like it was changing hands every day, every week. Just yeah, it was just impossible to really even keep track of who was the champion because it was changing hands like just way too much. So yeah, so this really didn't help anything for the WCW title. Yeah, and like I said, this match was just boring. Like I was bored throughout this whole thing. And the stipulation was dumb, and yeah, and the outcome was just pointless. So yeah, so a pretty bad match right there. So I would give that like 3/4 of a star. Yeah. All right. So yeah. So overall with the show, I would give this a 2 out of 10. Like yeah, this is really just like a very awful show. Just yeah. I mean, you had like just a lot of boring matches on the show. Oh, yeah, the first two matches were just like so terrible and boring. The Junkyard Invitational just was like very awful and stupid. It and just not done well. And yeah, the last two matches really are just like really awful as well. So yeah, so just this really is just like such an awful show. But yeah, like I said, the tag title match really does actually save the show from being like in contention for the worst pay per view of all time. So there is at least that on the show, and even like the eight eight man tag elimination was okay too. But yeah, that that was not really good enough to actually save the show by a long shot because yeah, the rest of the show really is just like so freaking bad. So yeah, so I definitely do not recommend watching the show. But if you do have to watch something, check out the WCW tag title match. That's really the only thing that is actually worth watching on the show. But definitely don't watch anything else, especially the main event. And because yeah, it really is just like such a bore with a very stupidly executed stipulation and a pointless outcome. So yeah, so like I said, it's not really hard to see like why WCW really was just like going so downhill at this point and how bad they were really getting. So yeah, so I just really don't know what else to really say. So yeah, so 2 out of 10. All right. So yeah, so I guess that's all I really have to say about it. All right, so yeah, so this is from my review of Bash at the Beach 1999. So I hope you guys did enjoy what I had to say about the show. So Yeah, and so yeah, so and that does, and so yeah, and that takes care of all the Bash at the Beach events. I've now reviewed all of them. So yeah, so like I said, Bash at the Beach really did have like a very inconsistent history, but yeah, it looks like their history like they they had more bad shows than they had good ones. So yeah, so it looks like Bash at the Beach really did not have like the best history. But yeah, at least there were like some shows to check out. All right. So anyway, all right. So yeah. So this is it for this review. So I hope you guys did enjoy. Yeah, and stay tuned because I got something coming up because. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to be going to see the Jurassic World live show. Yeah, the Jurassic World live tour is actually like here in Phoenix through the weekend. So yeah, and I am going to go see one of the shows tomorrow. So yeah, so tomorrow I'll probably make a video to really give my thoughts on the Jurassic World live show. So yeah, there, so a video for that will probably be coming tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. All right, but yeah, but I hope you guys did enjoy this review. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.